The way King Dick back here, and so before we start this video, I gotta get this mother humping thing out of the way. Mark Holmes is my daddy. Okay, that's out of the way. Ow!
Well, good Sunday morning, friends. Happy Easter. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as the Funky Chicken. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So we are on the cusp of the NFL draft, and this is kind of strange. This is actually really, really strange because this is the latest that we have gotten into the NFL draft, closest to the draft, without at least being one trade in the first round. Not a single trade in the first round has happened as of yet. Usually teams are jockeying for quarterbacks and they're making major moves and things, sometimes multiple moves. We saw the Eagles when they were trying to get Carson Wentz trade up twice to get there. We saw, like San Francisco trading 3 number ones to get to the number 3 pick. We've seen tons and tons of movement, but this year it's kind of meh. Nobody is going anywhere right now at the moment. And the Cowboys, they may have a bit of a problem or a bit of a conundrum here. It seems like everybody's got the Cowboys locked in. Of course, our fantasy player, of course, is Ashton Genty, okay, that everybody says if he's there, he's gone. Then Tat McMillan, you have to think that Tat McMillan is definitely the wide receiver, the big body that would definitely complement CeeDee Lamb. And then, of course, there is Matthew Golden. Golden, of course, it seems to be like that's the guy that everybody has us taking and so on, and seems like there's the biggest conversation. It seems like almost that they protest too much, that maybe he's really a decoy in where the Cowboys really want to go and that we don't really know where they want to go. Now, I'm going to say a couple of things happened that I noticed yesterday that kind of make you wonder, what are we going to do? One of which was listening to a tweet from Duke Merriweather. Duke Merriweather, who seems to be the offensive line guru, who knows everything about offensive linemen and works with so many of them in the offseason. And he kind of put up, when asked about how Tyler Guyton was doing, he basically said he's got a lot of work to do and how successful will be up to him. It wasn't a resounding, he's going to be ready to go and, he's going to be good and he's going to – this all of a sudden makes you wonder, is he progressing? I don't know.
Oh, shit! Oh, shit!
If he's not, that's a major problem. Now I do know we've signed a lot of players here as far as offensive linemen. I believe we have 15 right now, 15 offensive linemen. And so it's going to be a battle royale, which I actually like. I actually like having competition for positions. I don't like somebody who knows, well, heck, I'm going to be I'm the starter and, I don't have to work that hard. I'd rather have guys earn starting positions because they went through the process and showed I'm hungry enough to want to be that position. That this is my spot. There are many like it, but I'm claiming this one, damn it. And that's what we're going to need. But this doesn't make me feel great about our left tackle. Now, the philosophy typically is built from the lines out. And that makes complete sense when you have a quarterback that's getting older and has had some injuries over the last few years. It does. However, this is going to sound crazy when I say this, but at the moment, your offensive line is in better shape than you are with your weapons. You really have one weapon. And this is no disrespect to Miles Sanders or our other running back. But running backs, when they get older, aren't a fine wine. They don't get better with age. They just get old. And I'm not sure that that's good enough, what we have right now as far as running game. We recognize after going through last year and saying, Who needs any stinking running backs? We can go with old guys and unproven ones, and we'll be fine. Didn't work out real good for us. And having just one wide receiver has not worked out real well for us. Now, for us, here's a little bit of a conundrum or possibly a future problem in finding talent. The Dallas Cowboys have used the USL. What is it now? Did you know that this is week number 3 of the season? And the numbers are way down from where they were last year. I forgot that the league was even still was playing. I just didn't know. And if the numbers continue to be the way they are, and they are on television, they're on ABC and ESPN and everything else, they are being shown. It's just people aren't watching. At some point, it may not be viable. We've seen every other league other than the NFL fold at some point. And we know how much the Dallas Cowboys love finding talent from the USFL. The crazy thing is they're saying that the performances on the field are just awful. That nobody's scoring more than 20 points in a game, that the quarterbacks are under 55% completion percentage, and no running back has more than 63 yards in a game. So they literally are saying that the product that is being put on the field looks like weekend football that guys like me would play. Well, that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I still had 2 decent knees. But you understand that pipeline, when you start hearing that there's no running backs that are over 63 yards in a game, and that the quarterbacks, you may not find too much talent there this year from the USFL. You have in the past. You have found some great diamonds in the rough. I'm not going to say that we didn't, but this year doesn't sound like it's going to be there. Now, here's what I like about what the Cowboys have done. Typically, the Cowboys have signed old guys in free agency pretty much during training camp and after training camp, and just say, well, we can plug him in because he's an old guy that's got experience. And that hasn't worked out for us. You know, we bring in guys like Ha Dix and Don Terry Poe or Gerald McCoy, Emerson Griffin, the type of guys that you typically bring in, the older players. You look at it and say, they've got a whole lot of dirt behind them, road behind them, ain't got much more, that this is probably their last shot in the NFL, that they're on their way out. And you signed them late. Here's what I like. This year, the Cowboys have signed younger players that were thought to have a career path. 20-somethings instead of 30-somethings. They've gotten guys that have experience. And they've actually put some veterans in there that have experience. Miles Sanders, I know he's got a lot of miles on him and things, but he's a veteran that has experience. Dante Fowler, quietly, people don't seem to understand that he led the Commanders last year in sacks with 10.5. And as I pointed out yesterday, having guys that have 10 sacks on the roster, you had D-Law had 10 sacks 2 seasons in his whole time with the Cowboys. 2 times. 2017, he had 14.5. In 2018, he had 10. You had Robert Quinn in 2019, who had 11.5. And, of course, Micah, his 4 years, have been 12 plus. Dante Fowler coming back is a huge signing. Make no mistake about it. That's huge as far as our edge rushers go. He's a veteran who can help mentor the younger guys and is inexpensive. You got a 10.5 sack guy for $6 million if he reaches his incentives. So those were really good moves. You know, guys like Solomon Thomas, another guy who's really good. Yes, bringing in our linebackers that we have, team captain last year, as opposed to bringing in Anthony Barr in the middle of training camp, coming back from an ACL. Cowboys have made some really good moves. Now, the question is, as we look at the draft, it's pretty much, like I said, Austin Genty is your fantasy guy. That's the guy that if he's there, there's no question you're taking him. Tat McMillan is probably your second choice. And then Matthew Golden. Potentially, all three of them could be gone. But as we've seen thus far, everybody's kind of waiting and seeing how this draft. I don't think anybody really knows how this thing, other than Cam Ward. You can figure out the first three. Cam Ward is going to go. Cam Ward, without a doubt. Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. Not necessarily in that order. You got to figure that's going to be the first three. After that, with New England sitting there, New England might be the spot that somebody trades up for. You don't know how people really feel about Shedeur Sanders because, you hear some people say he's the most pro-ready quarterback, but yet then some people say, he's kind of arrogant and, he's not as great a prospect physically and so on. And that could be downplaying him because they're hoping that his stock falls. There's all kinds of games that are being played right now, and you just don't know. We just don't know what we don't know. So the Cowboys, I honestly think if there is a trade partner, that trading back might not be the worst thing in the world. They need the extra picks, and they must get more weapons. So this is an interesting take on Shedeur and Austin Genty as the top two players that should be drafted.
That leave them. Well, let's pick up what happened yesterday. The New York Giants met with Shedeur Sanders, who, as I said a moment ago, is sort of the center of intrigue of the entire NFL draft starting next Thursday night. And then today they are meeting with, what's the order, Milroe and then Shuck?
Milroe today, Tyler Shuck tomorrow.
And so where are we with that now? Because if the Steelers want Shedeur Sanders, who seems to be the most pro-ready, is that at least a reasonable way to put this? There are a million different opinions on him, but certainly if you're drafting a quarterback and you want him to play for you immediately, he seems to be like the one that you would want.
No question, Green. Based on his experience and the way he's been coached, he is a plug-and-play starter.
So the only question people have, Graziano, I know you don't know the answer, but I'm going to ask you to speculate. The Giants going to meet with him yesterday at this late date. Does this suggest that they are going to take him third in the draft next Thursday?
I don't think they're going to do that, and I don't think this suggests that. What's happening with these private workouts is Brian Daboll, the Giants head coach, believes he needs to conduct a private workout with the quarterback before he's okay with drafting him, right? And it's a very specific program that Brian Daboll puts the quarterback through. He tests him, his recall, his ability to do very specific things that he wants to be able to see. Remember, Joe Shane and Giants scouts spent the fall going to Colorado games and Miami games and all. Daboll did not. He's coaching the Giants. So the first time he ever saw Shedeur Sanders throw in person was the Colorado Pro Day, which originally he wasn't even going to go to. So this is, and today Jalen Milroe will get the same treatment that Shedeur Sanders got yesterday, and tomorrow Tyler Shuck will get the same treatment that Shedeur Sanders got yesterday. And by the way, Jackson Dart got a couple of weeks ago. So you're the Giants. You're trying to order your board. The last piece of data you need is your head coach needs to get their hands on him and conduct this private workout. That's all that's going on here.
Let me ask you a question, Mike Tannenbaum. For those of you who don't know, GM in two different places. So you've lived this life that the Giants are living in right now. If you're just reading the tea leaves, the fact that the Giants are having this workout with him at this late date, which, as Dan said, suggests they're not going to do that without drafting him, does it lead you to think more, or would you lean more towards they're considering him at 3, or they have read the tea leaves and believe there was going to be a real chance he's still available much later in the first round, and that they should be seriously considering a way to get him in the 20s?
Yeah, I think it's much more of the latter, because if they were convicted about taking him at 3, it's over. Like, again, you look at the way 31 other teams are comporting themselves, which is they're board set, and now you're just finalizing things, talking about strategy. What they're doing makes sense, but the timing is extremely odd. Like to do this so late. You've been looking at this player for 18 months, Greeny. So be it the Derek Carr situation in New Orleans, whatever it may be, to your point, this is about what's best for us late in the game, out working these guys out.
Do you think there could be a run on quarterbacks where that always happens? Because we know if Cam Ward's going 1, somebody at some point in the first round might say, all right, Sanders still there, we got to get him. And now you don't want to wait any longer to get whether it's Dart, whether it's Shock, whether it's Milroe. You got to be ready, and the Giants have to be agile enough, especially them, as desperate as they are in their front office. You got to be agile and ready to jump.
That's what it is. Okay, here's the quarterbacks we like. Let's say it's that group of 4 that will do the private workouts. What order do we have them in? Where do we feel comfortable taking them? Are we okay sitting at 34, second pick in the second round, and taking whichever of those is available to us that's our highest rank? If Shedeur Sanders falls into the 20s, do we need to make a move up to get him? Do we like him that much? Or same with Jalen Milroe, right? Do we like him that much? So that's all this is. And again, they can't be aligned or finalized if the head coach doesn't have all his data yet, which until tomorrow he won't, because he really, this matters to him.
Why is the head coach doing it now? It's typically a month ago. I mean, like, I work with Brian Daboll. He's a really good coach.
How much does how late Shedeur's showcase was, how much does that impact it? Like, do you do the private workouts before you see him on his pro day? Does that kind of change the timeline in it?
Yeah.
Jason, look, on January 2nd, whatever it was, Joe Shea and Brian Daboll were told by John Mara, you're here. That afternoon, you're saying, all right, here are the 15 quarterbacks we have to look at, from Matt Stafford to Shedeur Sanders, and then you map it out. You want that information earlier, because sometimes when you have a private workout, guys, there's more information. You want to bring them in, and you can only bring them in up to 7 days before the draft. And sometimes you bring them in, there's a security issue, a medical issue, their ability to learn, whatever it may be. So, again, it's just the fact that it's so late goes back to Greeny's point, which is, are they changing their strategy? Are they changing their order? Because I would have done it like the other teams several weeks ago, the day before the showcase, the day after the showcase, whatever it may be. You have dinner on day 1, you work them out on day 2. Like, there's ways to do it. The fact that they're out so late is just very unusual.
Let me leave it there for the moment. At the bottom of the hour, we're back on Get
It
Up,
is
and
kind
we
of
are
crazy.
6 days and counting to the NFL draft, and all the intrigue, of course, is surrounding the Giants and the number 3 overall pick. They had a private workout today. Louisville quarterback Tyler Shuck, that is tomorrow. And I want to make a point about something involving Shedeur Sanders, who has been the most oft-discussed player in this draft by far. And I'll set it up by letting you hear something. This was Shedeur Sanders at his team's showcase, what others call a pro day, about 2 weeks ago, expressing the utmost confidence in his own abilities. Here's what he said.
All I need is opportunity. Simple. Whatever franchise want to change their franchise, and there's no doubt who to go with. I've done it over and over and over, so you'll be a fool not to pick me.
Oh, you'd be a fool not to pick
So
me.
he said that, and I saw articles written in which an unnamed GM described him as brash and arrogant, and I felt like the general tone of reaction toward him was a negative one. Now, I want to show you something Ashton Genty, who we just showed you dunking at 5'9", who is the overwhelming top running back in this prospect in this class.
Basically says the same thing, and everybody
loves it. In the
loves
Players Tribune, this just came out yesterday. He said, if you pick me, this was like a letter he wrote to the NFL franchises. If you pick me, it's simple. I'm coming to your franchise to do what Saquon and the Eagles just did. I'm coming to win big soon. And that was just a tiny piece of what he said. He went on to say, I would take the guy that nobody can tackle. It was as brash and as arrogant a comment as you could possibly make. And let me be clear, I loved it. And I would think every team in the NFL would love it. Who
So what's the
doesn't want
difference?
That guy. I don't want the guy who says, take me and I'll do my best. You know, and
Try really hard.
But my point is, he compares himself to Saquon Barkley, who was the best running back in the NFL, just had one of the greatest seasons ever. Great. Shedeur Sanders didn't compare himself to Patrick Mahomes. He just said what he said. And the point I'm trying to make here is, there is a double standard that I think is based on confirmation bias. There are people who just don't like the Sanderses, they don't like Deion, they don't like Shedeur, they've made up their minds, and so when he says something like that, they say, see, that's what I'm talking about. Ashton Genty says, Actually, even more, words that could be described as more brash and more arrogant, to the reaction is, oh, I love that kid, love his moxie, love the attitude, that's the kind of guy I want on my team. I just thought it was an interesting juxtaposition. J-Mac, what do you think?
I think the people that are comparing these two and saying something different are idiots. I think
Thank you.
When you look at the draft this time of year, this is what every prospect is saying about how good they are. But at the same time, when you're evaluating a prospect and you're looking, and you know this, Mike T, to draft a guy this high, you overturn every stone to figure out anything about this kid. Mac Jones got knocked because of where he came from, that he was a pretentious kind of guy, a little bit of a snob. Whether it was Caleb Williams last year, he lives in a penthouse, he's making $10 million. Whether it was C.J. Stroud and an S2 cognition test, you find things to knock a player. So I'm not going to feel sorry for Shedeur when you're going to be drafted at the top of the draft. People are going to find things to say about you to make you feel a certain type of way, to knock you down. He's a guy that has had to own that his entire career. There's also another side of it where your talent level dictates how much you can say and how much somebody is willing to take. With a guy like Ashton Genty, and you feel like he is comparable to Saquon Barkley and he can change your franchise, you may be more in tune to hear those things. If you don't feel like the talent level matches the things that Shedeur Sanders is saying, well, you may feel like it's going to be a problem if the play doesn't hold up to the standard of what the mouth is saying.
You know, this is really reminds me of when Baker Mayfield came out. I was with the Dolphins, and he left the room, and half the room was like, my gosh, we could go follow him into war, and he's a battlefield commander. And the other half of the room was like, I don't want that guy anywhere near us. Like, he is not well-liked. And that was sort of like Baker Mayfield's career, a very divisive guy. And he's turned out to be a really good quarterback and a good leader, and he had to grow into it. And I think with Shedeur, I think the question is, and I think for me the answer would be yes, but like, can he have the mental toughness and resiliency to withstand the rigors of, hey, if he's with the New York Giants and he throws 3 interceptions on opening day, what is it going to be like? So you want somebody with moxie, Greeny, to your point. Now, look, yeah, does he need a little polish? Yeah, they all do. We all do when we came out of college, much the way Baker Mayfield, right? Took him his 4th team. So I understand why there's divisive opinions about it, but at the end of the day, you have to say, can this guy be our commander? Can he withstand the inevitable bumps in the road? And I think it's a definite yes.
I always feel bad for an unnamed GM because, like, what do you put on your office door? Like, you don't have a name.
Unnamed GM.
I don't put a lot of stock in it. Here's what I'll say. There was similar stuff being said about Kyler Murray when he came out. He was the 1 pick. Yep. Right? Shedeur Sanders is not going to be the 1 pick. And quite frankly, I don't think he's going to be the 2 pick or the 3 pick either. So there's more negative, I think, associated because teams aren't viewing him as an elite prospect. They are viewing Ashton Genty as an elite prospect. Yeah. Like I've been told by multiple people, this is the 3rd best player in the draft, Ashton Genty.
Mel has him 4 on the big board,
So Mel's higher on Shedeur Sanders than most of the teams you talk to.
Yeah.
So I think what you get, and again, you can find someone on the internet to say anything, positive or negative, right? So you don't put a lot of stock in that. But I think to your point, Greeny, I think you're right about the bias inherent in being Deion Sanders' kid, right? Like people are going to be inclined to think, oh, whatever, because they have an opinion one way or another about Deion. But
either love him or hate him.
Ultimately, it wouldn't matter if he were a Patrick Mahomes level talent, right? I just don't think anybody would care.
There you go. That's interesting take.
Travis Hunter coming up.
Now, here's what I will say about the Dallas Cowboys and their situation right now. I think the Cowboys, people are still, the Cowboys suck. They're not doing anything. I have to beg to differ on that because we've seen a lot of teams sign big-name players. How many times have we seen DeAndre Hopkins traded or signed someplace? And did it bring a single Super Bowl? No. We saw Von Miller, of course, Von Miller with the Rams, with the team that was already good. That worked there, but it didn't work out for Buffalo. We've seen the Jets spend more money with big-name players than anybody else. And the Commanders, with the exception of last year, they were always the team that was making the biggest splashes. Guys like Albert Hainsworth, Deion Sanders, Adam Archuleta. You can go down the line. Heck, Donovan McNabb, and never busted a grape. So just making a big name splash doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get big play production out of that player because of what they've done elsewhere. It's about getting 11 guys all on the same page, working in cohesiveness. That's the bottom line. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter who you have on the field. That's a big name, big ego. Now, the Cowboys have recognized last year we screwed the pooch. We let go Tyron Smith and Biotish. They go elsewhere, and we bring in 2 rookies. We're good. Our other holes, we're going to look at USFL. We're going to look at guys that were out of the league, and we're going to look at aging veterans. And we're going to take our time before we do that. At least we've got young talent that's going to be hungry, that's looking to get their next contract, that there's no guarantee that I'm going to be here next year or in the NFL if I do not perform, as opposed to a guy who's kind of like, do I retire this year, or do I go ahead and take another check on the way out? Let me take a check on the way out. And I'm not really tied to this because I'm thinking about the next thing. I think that's a better thing. And the fact that we have all of these guys in right now, and when you go down the list of the moves that the Cowboys made, in comparison to what they typically do, this is night and day different. Now, the draft, we got to hit on players. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If we have drafts like the last 2 where they're project players, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. But we need a day one impact player. And we're going to have to wait and see how that all works out. And you don't really know from the draft. You won't know until they actually get out on the field. Well, as always, good people, I appreciate you guys. Don't forget today, I know it is Easter, so probably a lot of you will not be joining us, but we will have our membership stream at 5 o'clock today, and I hope to see you guys there. As always, I got to get out of here.
I can't stand it anymore. I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Stewardess, please let me handle this.
I've got to get
Calm down. Now get back to your seat. I'll take care of this. Calm down. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Doctor, you're wanted on the phone. Everything's gonna be all right. Please.
Sister, please, I'll handle this.
I've got to get out of here.